This happened last month. I was working as a graphic designer in a modern office downtown. I liked the night shifts because everything was so quiet. The stillness felt nice. That night, I had no idea how things would change. I was staring at my computer screen, making tiny changes to a design. I looked around and realized I hadn't seen anyone for hours. The office felt empty. I could see the moonlight spilling through the glass. It all felt too still. A chill crept up my spine. I shook it off, thinking it was just me. But my heart still raced. Then I noticed something. On my desk, there were 3 drawings. They hadn't been there before. I picked one up. It showed a dark figure standing in my bedroom. I frowned. Was someone playing a prank? I looked around again, but the office remained quiet. I ignored it and tried to focus, but the feeling of being watched hung over me. The next night, I returned to discover more drawings. One of them was strange. It depicted me in front of a mirror, but the reflection showed something else, something sinister. My skin crawled. Who was doing this? Was it stress messing with my mind? I pushed the thought aside and got back to work. But every night, more drawings appeared, each one revealing things about my life no one should have known. As midnight came, I thought I heard whispers down the hall. They were faint but unmistakable. I stepped out of my cubicle, my heart racing. The long rows of desks were still empty. Was it my imagination? I returned to my desk, but the whispers grew louder. They felt wrong, filled with malice. Days passed, and the drawings turned darker. One night, I found one showing fire. I felt weak as I stared at it. Who was watching me? I searched for answers, but who would I even ask? The office was empty, and I was utterly alone. Or was I? Tension crawled through me, and I felt cold. The walls seemed to close in. That night, I turned around when I heard something. A figure loomed over me in the darkness. I blinked, and it was gone. A whisper brushed my ear. "Why are you afraid?" I froze. My heart stopped. It hit me. Maybe it wasn't about someone else. Maybe it was me. I glanced back at my desk, and my breath caught. The last drawing stared back at me. A mirror showing complete darkness. I felt a terror unlike anything I'd known. The darkness didn't just surround me, it consumed me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there were things lurking, watching. I was spiraling into that void, and it would never let me go. That night, I couldn't shake the weight pressing down on me. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Yet it lingered, thick and suffocating. I forced myself to focus on the screen, hoping that work would distract me. But every time I glanced at the desk, the drawing of the mirror pulled me back. I grabbed my phone and opened the flashlight, the beam cutting through the dimness. I scanned the area around my desk, half expecting something to leap out at me. The space felt oddly foreign, like I was in someone else's dream. I took a deep breath and flipped the drawing over, hoping to find a signature or some clue about its origin. Nothing, just blank paper. As I placed it down, a sudden flicker in the overhead lights startled me. I looked up, my pulse racing. The lights dimmed and surged, then abruptly went dark. Panic surged within me. I stumbled out of my chair, my phone still illuminating my shaky hands. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. No response. Only the sound of my own breathing filled the void. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in around me. I turned my attention back to the desk. I decided I needed to take the drawings home. Maybe they would make sense in the light of day. As I gathered them, a rush of air swept through the room, cold enough to make me shiver. A whisper brushed past me again, clearer this time. "Don't look away." I froze, staring into the darkness. I felt the urge to leave, but my feet refused to move. That's when I saw it, a flickering reflection in the glass of my monitor. At first, it was just my own face staring back, but then it shifted. I leaned closer, and the reflection morphed into the dark figure from the first drawing. It grinned, its eyes gleaming with malice. I stumbled back, knocking over a stack of papers. My heart raced as I felt the room plunge deeper into unrest. The figure in the reflection didn't disappear. It just continued to watch me, its smile widening. I had to break the spell. I grabbed my things, bolted for the exit, and pushed my way through the door. The hallway felt endless, shadows leaping off the walls as I hurried toward the stairwell. My palms were slick with sweat, and the whispers haunted my ears, urging me to turn back. I burst through the exit and into the parking lot, gasping for air. I sprinted toward my car, fumbled with my keys, and jumped inside. The engine roared to life. I drove home at a speed that felt reckless, my heart still pounding. As soon as I stepped inside my apartment, I locked the door. I carried the drawings to my living room and laid them out. My mind raced with questions. Who had drawn these? Why was it happening to me? I had to find out. That's when I heard it again, the whisper, now clearer, sliding through the quiet air. The answers lie within. My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I had escaped the office, but the nightmare followed me. I struggled to breathe for a moment, trying to steady myself. I glanced around the dark room, half expecting something to jump out from the shadows. The whisper lingered in the air, curling around me like smoke. The answers lie within. It felt like a threat, but also a challenge. I forced myself to examine the drawings again. Each image seemed more vivid under the weak light of my lamp. The first was of the mirror, detailed and haunting. The second depicted a twisted hallway, with ominous shadows lurking in the corners. The third was a close-up of the figure I had seen in my reflection, its smile grotesque and wide. They felt like a puzzle, but I didn't have the pieces. With shaking hands, I reached for my phone and searched for anything related to the drawings. I needed to know if anyone else had experienced something like this. After endless scrolling through forums and articles, nothing felt remotely relevant. I pinched the bridge of my nose in frustration. My mind was racing, lost between logic and terror. As I set my phone down, a sudden chill filled the room. I pulled my blanket tighter around my shoulders. Just then I heard it again, a soft knocking, like fingernails against a hard surface. It was coming from my bedroom. I felt my heart skip a beat. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself. I told myself it could be anything, a tree branch against the window, maybe the sound of the heating system. But deep down, fear twisted in my gut. Mustering what courage I had, I walked toward the bedroom. Each step felt like wading through water. I kept the flashlight trained on the floor, its beam flickering as I turned it on. I stopped at the doorway, my breath hitching in my throat. Nothing seemed out of place. The room was still, shadows pooling in the corners. I took a hesitant step inside. That's when I noticed the mirror on my dresser. It gleamed unnaturally, reflecting the light in a way that felt wrong. "You can't resist," the voice whispered again. I felt the hair on my arms stand on end. I wanted to turn and run, but curiosity held me rooted. I approached the mirror, the air thick with dread. There was something inside it, an image beginning to materialize. My reflection twisted and contorted. I remembered the drawing, the way the figure had grinned at me from the monitor. Why was I drawn to this mirror? Then it struck me. I could see the hallway from the second drawing, stretching behind me in the mirror's reflection. It was both mesmerizing and horrifying. I blinked hard, and in that brief moment the image shifted. The figure stood there, looming, watching me with those same glittering eyes. Instinct kicked in. I quickly stepped back, my heart pounding in my ears. But the figure didn't disappear. Instead, it raised a hand, beckoning me closer. An overwhelming urge to answer filled me. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the living room, breaking the trance. I spun around, adrenaline surging. The drawings were scattered across the floor, a whirlwind of chaos. "Who's there?" I shouted, panic spiraling. I had to know what was happening. I raced back toward the living room, every instinct screaming to flee. But now I needed answers, desperately. That's when I saw it. One of the drawings had flipped over, and something was scrawled on the back. I crouched down, heart racing. The words seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "The truth is a reflection. In the mirror it dwells." With my heart racing, I took another step forward. What awaited me in that pitch-black room? The shadows twisted and turned in front of me, forming shapes that felt all too familiar. Just then, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the darkness, sending a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I spun around, half expecting it to fly open again, but it remained shut, trapping me inside. My flashlight flickered, as if sensing my fear, and I tightened my grip on it, willing it to stay lit. Panic bubbled within me, but I had to focus. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stand still. The shadows flickered, moving like tendrils around my ankles, soaking up the small amount of light. "Okay, think," I whispered, glancing around. The walls felt close, constricting. Somewhere, deep in the dark, the whisper came again. "You found me." I felt a pull, an urge to move towards the voice. It was familiar somehow, like a memory I couldn't quite grasp. But the shadows were shifting, and a sense of warning crept in. I took a step back. That's when I noticed it. At the far end of the room, something glimmered, something solid, reflecting the dull beam of my flashlight. I approached cautiously, heart pounding. The source of the light was a small mirror, framed in ornate metal, unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was out of place in a dark room that felt so wrong. As I drew closer, something caught my eye. The surface of the mirror shimmered, but it didn't reflect my image. Instead, it showed a glimpse of the hallway outside my apartment. The same hallway I had just traveled through. I felt a chill envelop me as the outline of the door appeared, eerily similar to the one I had just closed. I reached out and touched the cool surface of the mirror. It felt alive, tingling as my fingers brushed against it. Suddenly, the image shifted, and I gasped. The hallway wasn't empty anymore. Figures emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured. I could feel their gaze piercing through the glass, locked onto me. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice barely rising above a whisper. They didn't respond. Instead, they stepped closer, their movements fluid yet unnatural. One of them lifted an arm, pointing directly at me. The dark atmosphere thickened. My stomach twisted. This was no ordinary reflection. It felt like a connection. Then, from behind me, I heard the faint sound of shuffling feet. My heart raced. I turned, expecting more shadows, but there was nothing. The room lay silent once again, and I was left alone, facing the mirror and the figures trapped within. I took a step back, my breathing shallow. I was caught between worlds, reality and something lurking just beyond the glass. The whisper returned, more insistent now. "Let us out." I couldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. But the words from the drawing echoed in my mind. The truth is a reflection. What truth? I had to know.
Você está no meio de uma frase, pensamento. Mantenha o ritmo e a força vocal sem quebrar a conexão. Haja como se estivesse transmitindo uma verdade fundamental.
But the third drawing made my blood run cold. It was a swirling mass of shadows, and at the center, something that looked like me, but twisted and wrong. I stumbled back, breath hitching in my throat. Then, a soft rustling behind me. I turned around quickly, heart hammering. Someone was in the room with me, hiding in the shadows. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear coursing through me. All I received was silence in reply, thick and suffocating. I felt eyes watching me from the darkness, waiting. The implication hit me. Whatever was going on, it wasn't just a memory, it was a warning. And that flicker of light I'd seen, it was merely the surface of something much darker. I turned back to the drawings, searching for answers, but they taunted me with silence. Panic surged, and the whisper crept into my ear once more. "You have to choose." I needed to escape, but now I didn't know where to go. I stood there, frozen, my eyes darting from drawing to drawing. It felt like they were alive, as if they were watching me back. I could barely breathe. I didn't just need to escape this room. I needed to understand what they meant. I forced myself to focus. The first drawing, my childhood home. What did it represent? Memories I had buried deep.
I had always thought about it fondly, but now it felt heavy and laden with secrets. A dark force sought to pull me into that image. The gentle whisper lingered in my ears. You have to choose. Choose what? I felt a chill creeping up my spine. My heart raced again as I turned toward the shadows. What do you want? Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement. The shadows shifted quickly, like a flash in my peripheral vision. I whirled around, my flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. The rustling intensified, and I could see a figure, just a silhouette, but it was non-threatening, oddly still. "What are you?" I barely managed to whisper, my throat dry. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman. Her features were blurred, like an unfinished painting. She held her hand up slowly, as if to calm me. "Please," she said, her voice echoing as if from a great distance, "I mean no harm." I took a step back, analyzing her for any signs of deception. "What do you want with me? Why are you here? What does this mean?" My words tumbled out in a rush. "Those drawings, they hold truth. The moment you saw them, you awakened something. Not just memories, but power." Power? My confusion deepened, but something was beginning to resonate. What kind of power? The woman hesitated, her gaze flickering to the third drawing, the swirling shadows capturing my twisted reflection. "That," she pointed, "it is the choice. You can embrace it or run from it. But know this, running may cost you more than you realize." What happens if I embrace it? A knot formed in my stomach. I didn't like where this was going. In accepting it, you may uncover the truth of these shadows.
The darkness that whispers to you may reveal the path to freedom. The fading light from the room made it hard to see her clearly. I didn't know if I could trust her, or if there was something sinister lurking behind those words. Before I could respond, the ground seemed to tremble slightly under my feet, and the drawings on the easel began to swirl together, glowing brighter. The heartbeat echoed louder, filling the room. I felt my heart synchronizing with it, each beat bringing a mixture of fear and urgency. Make your choice. Suddenly, the door I had entered through slammed shut, sealing me in. The shadows thickened, almost palpable. I was trapped, and time was running out. A surge of adrenaline pushed me forward, and I took a step toward the swirling mass of darkness, drawn deeper into the flickering glow. I was about to learn what lay on the other side. The moment I stepped closer to the swirling shadows, the air around me felt electric. It hummed with an intensity I couldn't ignore. The room began to vibrate as if the walls were alive, echoing my heartbeat, and I was pulled further in. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but the allure of knowing more was overwhelming. "What is it?" I asked the blurred woman, desperation leaking into my voice. "What will happen if I let it in?" "It's the key to understanding your past," she said. Her voice was low and steady, yet it echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. "But it may unlock more than you bargained for." As I hesitated, memories flooded back. My childhood home, the laughter of loved ones, the laughter that turned to silence. Each recollection felt layered with dread now. Why this? Why me? The swirling darkness pulsed around me, its magnetic energy thrumming like a live wire. Shapes began to emerge within it, whispering my name, pulling me toward the unknown. I stepped back, fear gripping my heart anew. I don't want this. Fear will only bind you, she warned, her figure becoming more defined as the shadows ebbed slightly. You must face it, embrace it, and it could set you free. In that instant, something shifted. The figure in the darkness was no longer just a collection of shades. I could see them forming my reflection, each distorted version of myself showing a piece of who I was. I stumbled back, but my feet wouldn't fully obey me. That's when I saw it, a flash of something in the center, a memory, perhaps. Without thinking, I reached out. The moment my fingers grazed the darkness, the world cascaded around me. Suddenly, I was back in my childhood home, standing in the living room, but everything was wrong. Shadows lurked in corners, and whispers echoed around me, the voices blending into a symphony of panic. "You shouldn't have come back," they hissed, cold and disembodied. I spun around, clutching my flashlight, but the room shifted, warping like a funhouse mirror. There was no comforting warmth, just the oppressive coldness of dread. My voice trembled, urgency clawing at me. "Everything," they replied in unison, their tones mixing with laughter that sent chills down my spine. They were familiar, yet foreign, like echoes of forgotten friends. Before I could comprehend what it all meant, the shadows lunged at me. Fear surged like a tidal wave, and I stumbled, hands grasping at air. I was thrust back through the swirling mass, and instinct kicked in. I had to escape. Suddenly, the vivid scenery of my living room vanished as I was pulled back into the art studio, gasping for breath. The woman stood before me, her expression steady. "You felt it, didn't you?" she asked, her eyes piercing through the shadows that still walked around me. "Felt what?" I barely managed to breathe, my heart racing. "The truth. Now you understand. It's not just about the drawings. It's about you and the choices you'll have to make." I took a step away from her, mind racing with possibilities and fears. What if I don't want to know? Then you may lose your chance at freedom, but the choice is yours. The shadows stretched closer, and I felt trapped between two worlds, one filled with my past, and one where I could become something beyond it. But I remembered the laughter, the whispers. I couldn't ignore how they pulsed beneath my skin. I was teetering on the edge. As I prepared to make my decision, the ground shifted once more, and I lost my balance, tumbling into a deeper part of the darkness. And that's when I realized I wasn't just faced with fears. I was faced with a choice that ran deeper than I could have imagined. I hit the ground hard, landing in what felt like thick, heavy fog. It clawed at my senses, wrapping around me like a weighted blanket. Panic surged. I blinked against the obscurity, but saw nothing. It was only shadow, swirling and pulsating as if breathing. With every pulse, I could feel whispers creeping in from the edges. They were fragments of words, soft at first, then louder, more insistent. "You should have chosen differently," an ominous voice sneered. The shadows stretched, eager to merge with my skin. I crawled back, desperate for some solid ground. "Get away!"
I shouted, my voice swallowed by the void. But they surged closer, dark tendrils reaching toward me like skeletal hands. I grasped for the memory of light, of safety, anything but this horror. Suddenly there was a crack when solid light broke through the fog, illuminating the dark with a fierce brightness. I squinted, shielding my eyes as a figure emerged. It was the woman before, but she was different now. Shadows clung to her like a dark aura, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Choose," she commanded, her voice slicing through the chaos. "What do you mean?" I managed to shout back, feeling the weight of her words crush my heart. "What choice?" "Every vision reveals a future. You can't escape your past, but you can decide how it shapes your future." I took a step away from her, mind racing with possibilities and fears. What if I don't want to know? Then you may lose your chance at freedom, but the choice is yours. The shadows stretched closer, and I felt trapped between two worlds, one filled with my past, and one where I could become something beyond it. But I remembered the laughter, the whispers. I couldn't ignore how they pulsed beneath my skin. I was teetering on the edge. As I prepared to make my decision, the ground shifted once more, and I lost my balance, tumbling into a deeper part of the darkness. And that's when I realized I wasn't just faced with fears. I was faced with a choice that ran deeper than I could have imagined. I hit the ground hard, landing in what felt like thick, heavy fog. It clawed at my senses, wrapping around me like a weighted blanket. Panic surged. I blinked against the obscurity, but saw nothing. It was only shadow, swirling and pulsating as if breathing. With every pulse, I could feel whispers creeping in from the edges. They were fragments of words, soft at first, then louder, more insistent. "You should have chosen differently," an ominous voice sneered. The shadows stretched, eager to merge with my skin. I crawled back, desperate for some solid ground. "Get away!" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the void. But they surged closer, dark tendrils reaching toward me like skeletal hands. I grasped for the memory of light, of safety, anything but this horror. Suddenly there was a crack where solid light broke through the fog, illuminating the dark with a fierce brightness. I squinted, shielding my eyes as a figure emerged. It was the woman before, but she was different now. Shadows clung to her like a dark aura, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Choose," she commanded, her voice slicing through the chaos. "What do you mean?" I managed to shout back, feeling the weight of her words crush my heart. "Every vision reveals a future. You can't escape your past, but you can decide how it shapes your future."
Então, decidir e levá-lo adiante. You must choose now, and you must choose wisely. "Choose what?" I shouted back, frustration mingling with fear. The whispers in the air wrapped around me, drowning out reason, while the dark figure's grin widened. "You can accept your past or resist it," the woman said, her voice ringing clear amidst the chaos. "But both choices carry weight. The darkness you see before you is only a part of what you've allowed to fester. You control how it shapes you."
The shadows flickered, swirling towards me, tentacles of darkness seeking to pull me into their embrace. My instincts screamed to run, but a new warmth flared up within me in response to the woman's words. It was the faint echo of the truth that nestled at the edge of my memories, interwoven with light and dark. It had power, my life had power, and my past, twisted as it was, held the key. I focused on the swirling drawings that danced on the table, a reflection of my life laid bare. They beckoned me forward. Summoning every ounce of resolve, I stepped toward the chaotic illustrations, my hand trembling. "I choose to confront it," I declared, my voice stronger. "I refuse to be afraid." The dark figure hissed, a shrill wail that filled the room like shards of glass. "You cannot win. The shadows crave you." But the woman smiled, her presence grounding me. "Keep moving. Remember, shadows only exist where there's light. Allow your truth to guide you." I reached out, grasping the drawings one by one, each stroke igniting flashes of memories, some painful, others distant. As I held them, light swelled within me, mixing with the darkness, blurring the line until both began to dissolve. The dark figure lunged, its shadowy hands reaching for me, but the energy rippled from my core, pushing back against it. "You will not take me!" I shouted. The shadows dissolved in the brightness. With every drawing I imagined, a new spectrum of light shone, mingling with the dark energies swirling around me. The figure stumbled, letting out a dreadful scream as it began to dissipate, lost in the radiant light that surged throughout the room. Then a strange stillness settled around me, the whispers fading to nothing, replaced by a profound silence. I gasped, feeling the thrum of energy as my surroundings changed. The shadowy remnants began to lift, revealing the clean lines of the studio. But the woman was gone, leaving only the indelible impressions of her words in my mind. I found myself standing alone among the remnants of the drawings, breathing heavily, but feeling lighter, more grounded. Yet, despite my escape, unease lingered. Why me? What drew the shadows? I was left with questions, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling in the aftermath of confrontation. Do I still believe? Or has all this been nothing more than a figment of my imagination? I stood there for a moment, absorbing the calm that now enveloped me. I still work in the office, still take the night shifts.